What's up, guys? JR Raymond back again, coming to you from my car because unfortunately I did not advance in the second day at the tournament this weekend. But we're going to talk a little bit about the tournament and some lane patterns. Should we be using easier patterns or should we be using tougher patterns in tournaments? I don't know. Let's talk about it when I get back. Stay tuned. All right, what's up, guys? So, went down to Coleraine, Ohio, which is basically Cincinnati, and bowled a tournament that pays $4,000 to win. It was a $100 entry, basically, or $120 the first entry, and then $100 after, because you could re-enter. There were multiple squads throughout the week. I think there were 6 total squads. Squads on Friday, squads on Saturday, and then the finals were Sunday. The format was you bowl 4 games. And then the top 30, it ended up being the top 38 ended up qualifying for Sunday, which it took 950 to make the finals in this event, which is almost 240 a game, which is kind of, I mean, that's a really high scoring pace for 38 guys to average 240. That's tough, you know. So no, you know you have to put up some numbers, and then the format for the next day was everybody comes back and the scores are dropped. And the reason scores are dropped is because everybody bowled different squads. So not everybody really had the opportunity to technically bowl on the same thing. So it'd be tough to carry the scores over when not everybody bowled on the same squad. So scores are dropped, you bowl 4 more games and you move on, and you both, then they cut to the top 20 of those 38. And unfortunately I made the first round. I bowled 10-22. With 8-11 my first 3 games to qualify, and I found a way. I had a halo, the halo solid. I found a way to get the ball to go through the pins. I was able to play straighter in the track area, right around that 8, 9, 10 area. So I do that because we don't know what the track is. According to some, it's 6 through 10, and then according to a lot of other people, the modern track is more, 10 to 15. So who knows? Who cares? Whatever. It is what it is. So I started right around 8, 9, 10 at the Arrows, and I stayed there pretty much the whole day and was able to just basically rifle it up that spot because there was so much hook to the right and so much hang to the left. It was one of those typical, it was like a league pattern. It was one of those typical miss a little bit to the left and you 2-pin all day, miss a little to the right, and it's big 4. So you kind of had to throw some really good shots, or you had to really match up. And unfortunately for me, I really matched up. When I missed a little to the right with the halo, it didn't overhook. It kind of blended it and got back to the pocket and struck. And then when I missed a little bit in, it was a strong enough ball that it still got through the pins. So that was kind of a good thing. But I certainly didn't have that game 2, 3, and 4 today. Game 1, I was able to do the exact same thing today, and I bowled 279. I threw it all over the place though, but I had the right ball in my hand. Then I moved to the next pair, and all of a sudden they were snot tight. Like I couldn't get the ball to hook. I started moving right, and that's when I got that over under really bad. All of a sudden my ball didn't match up, so I missed a little bit to the right and overhooked, missed a little bit to the left and never hooked. So I bowl 190, and then I switched to. Throughout that, I'm trying to make changes because I'm like, I just bowled basically 300 over for 5 games. Why in the world would any other ball work? So I tried to make that ball work, just making minor hand tweaks. Bowl 190, not good. So I'm like, okay, well, obviously the hand tweaks aren't going to work, so I got to get into a different ball. So I grabbed the Halo Vision, which would maybe give me a little bit more pop, maybe blend a little bit more. I don't know. And it worked a little bit better, and I bowled 220, but I just still, the wrap 10s, the flat 10s, the swish 7s, they were right there. And then the last game, it was all the same thing. I used the Halo and the Halo Vision throughout the game, trying to get them to strike, and I couldn't put more than a double together, and I bowled 2-0. So I bowled 907, and it took 929 to make the next round. So just couldn't find a way to get it done. And that leads me into the question of, should we be bowling in tournaments when the scores are super high, or should we be trying to bowl on them when they're tough? Now, here's the thing. A lot of people who bowl league and who are traditionalists are going to say, well, the cream's going to rise to the top, and the best bowler is always going to win anyway. No, that's not true. Not true at all. If there's enough games, yes. If there's enough games, you start to see breakdown. You start to see the patterns break down and do different things. Then sure, you can definitely make that argument that eventually somebody's going to have to make enough adjustments, and they're going to be the one that wins. But when they're like this. And nothing, again, I got to put this disclaimer out there so that way people don't think I'm trying to bash on this tournament. Nothing wrong with this tournament. It is what it is. I don't think he meant to make them this easy. He announced it was going to be a 40-foot pattern with 25 mils, and it wasn't going to be hard, and it wasn't going to be easy. So he meant to make them in the middle ground. So unfortunately for the tournament, or for the event, or for my mind, I guess, I don't know what you want to say there, they were just a little bit softer. They were a little easy. And it took some big numbers to get through there. So when it gets like that, it turns into who can carry the best, who has the right ball in their hand, and who can create the most margin for error by having the right ball in their hand. And even when you have the margin for error, that doesn't mean you're going to strike a lot. And if you're not striking a lot, you can't keep up with the field. You're not making cuts, and you don't have a chance to win. So even the person who's making the best shots doesn't always win. And that's kind of the problem with some of these really easy patterns. Now, when you get into the really hard patterns where they're dang near impossible, those are a problem too. They definitely don't need to be super stupid hard where they're dead flat and, rev rate dominates and shot making kind of, you don't know whether your ball's going to hook or not hook. So you're just hoping for the good breaks, and again, it turns into whoever has the right ball in their hand that can get them to the pocket consistently and can bowl 210 every game ends up winning. It just, that again, it goes back, you bring in a bunch of luck there. You got to carry you got to carry the marginal hits, you got to carry the Brooklyns, whereas when you're bowling on something easy, you got to carry the marginal hits, and you got to carry the off hits, so it turns into basically the same thing. It's just two different sides of the spectrum. So I'm not saying, I think we need to find a middle ground. That's where I've always kind of stood on the whole thing. I used to be the guy that was like, man, make them as hard as possible. Let's bring shot making into it. But now with the equipment the way it is, the equipment has gotten so much stronger and so much more dominant in the game that it's become too much about, having the right ball in your hand than the person who's out there making shots. And I know people are going to disagree with me, and that's okay. It's just from my experience, what I've seen on a lot of these events, the goal of, tournament directors, which again, disclaimer, I think this was his goal, was to try to find a middle ground, and the building is just such a high friction building that it just didn't allow it. It just didn't allow him to be very tough. So, but I think the goal of most times is to make a middle ground, to make them to where they're not too hard and they're not too easy. They make it to where you have to make minor hand changes, you have to make the adjustments, you have to make ball adjustments, you have to do all the right things to stay in play and to knock down pins. And that 220 is a good score. That's kind of the goal. And I think like Kegel and USBC and those companies, they do a good job with trying to create that most times. Now, when you get to when you bowl on that 40-foot flat pattern, and everybody just gets left immediately because they're trying to create hold, and that's a whole different other subject there. They turn into a mess, and then it becomes whoever has the highest rev rate and whoever can get the ball to go through the pins, that type of thing. So anyway, I'm in that firm belief that I think we need to find a middle ground on these events, on all events. I guess it's okay if you want to run a sweeper here and there, and they're on a dead China pattern, like that, I'd be all for it. But I don't know that they should ever. I don't know that any tournament with any value, or at least not very many tournaments with any value, should it be contested on something, as easy as like a league pattern or something like that. Just because of, you kind of want to keep the integrity into the game, and kind of keep the integrity into the sport a little bit. And there's always going to be those traditionalists who say, well, it doesn't matter what the pattern is, you still got to make the best shots, and again, I'm politely going to disagree with that. I've just, all too often, I've seen people who, they just happen to have the right ball in their hand, throwing it all over the place, and they just strike, and they just never stop striking. So, it is what it is. So then the argument becomes, well, then you need to figure out what the right ball is. Exactly, but it shouldn't be about the balls. It should be about the person throwing it, So I don't know. It's just the way I feel about it. It's just the way I see it. It is what it is. It's not a big deal. all in all, I actually felt pretty good about this event because I don't strike very well when they're easy like that. And this weekend, I actually found a way to put some strikes together. So that's a little bit of a confidence boost there. Stinks to not make it very far in the event, but to put strikes together like that and actually feel like I could compete or feel like I had a chance to move on was pretty cool. It's frustrating when you sit there and you hit the pocket 10 times a game for 2-0 or for 2-teen. That's super frustrating, especially when you're changing balls 3 times and still hitting the pocket and you still can't get them to fall. You know, that's just how it goes sometimes. So unfortunately, that's the way the game's played when we get the recreation level or some events that, you know, have recreation type patterns on them. So anyway, that's all I got for you today. What do you guys think? You think it's okay? You think there should be more events on league patterns to where they're just easy and everybody can strike on them, or do we need to make them super hard, or do we need to find a middle ground? What do you think? Let me know in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe. And again, I don't want to turn this into an argument, and I don't want anybody to think this is, you know, me complaining. It's not me complaining. It's just me making a point. It's me trying to just express my opinion on the situation. I'm not saying that I'm right. I feel that I'm right, but of course, nobody would have an opinion if they didn't think they were right. So it's just how I feel about it. If you disagree, you disagree, and that's okay. We can disagree. That's not a big deal. But let me know how you feel in the comments below. And until next time, we will see you guys later. Take care.